This is the Business Storytelling Show, a top global marketing podcast listened to in more than 100 countries, live streamed on social media, and broadcast on DBTV. Christoph Trapp chats with industry leaders to help your company tell better business stories. Here's today's episode.
Episode 669, my friends. It was supposed to be episode 668, but we had technical issues. So what do? In the live stream world, when you have technical issues, you just do it again. Do it a different day when the internet works once again. That's how we roll around here. Really appreciate today's guest, Elizabeth Eiss. She's joining me to talk about virtual assistants. And that involves, just the traditional virtual assistant, so to speak, and really anybody that can help you virtually. What's interesting to me about that topic, I'm a big proponent. I work at home. All my clients are all over the world. And I could actually not imagine just being in a place to do what I do here. Better lighting, look better. Somebody told me the other day that they don't put a makeup and they use a filter. I don't necessarily do that, but you can do that. So Elizabeth runs resultsresourcing.net. We got that up right there. And let's find out, what is the era of virtual assistants and how do you make use of that correctly and, to help your business move forward? Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
What a great way to start.
Nice to see you. Really appreciate you coming on. Now, kind of tell me your interest in the era of virtual assistants. Why is that so near and dear to your heart? Why do you care about that? And let's kind of find out, how do people make use of that today?
Cool. Well, it's been an evolutionary journey, really. And it dates back to some of my earliest days. I spent years in corporate America running large businesses. And, I had an opportunity at one point to join a national accounts division. But I kind of did the math because they define national accounts as Fortune 1000. And I thought, well, there's just 1,000 of them. If you come down market, it's a much bigger market and a lot more people to work with and to help. And so I've always been kind of focused on the lower end of the market. And I actually left the insurance industry 23 years ago, to join my first startup. And when I was in the startup world, I took instantly a duck to water entrepreneurship. And I was working with tons of small businesses. And I was so impressed by the entrepreneurism, the vision, the innovation. And really, it was tons of small businesses. And I was amazed at how creative they were. And really, small businesses are the backbone of almost every economy in the United States. It's 99.9% of businesses. And I thought, if I'm going to focus my attention, that's where to focus my attention. How do I help those businesses get bigger, realize their ideas, ambitions, and deliver more to the market? And so it's really started a long time ago when I was thinking about how everyone goes after the big fish. But actually the pond is full of little fish if you can figure out how to fish properly. So that's really how I've evolved my ideas about tackling small business.
It's really an interesting way to look at it. And the other thing I find interesting is, when you work virtually, right? I mean, you're not just confined to the talent that's in your city. And that's talent, that's even diversity. I know Michelle Gnomi, when she was on the show, she said, the problem is, of course, you can hire diverse workforces, even if you're based in Iowa, which is like 94% white or something, but it has to be virtual, right? It's the same concept. You have to, you can find people that can help you with whatever it is you're doing, and you're not necessarily just bounded by where you're located. But that leads me to one question. There's some people out there, and they say, it doesn't work. I have to see people. If I have an admin, I have to see that person in front of me. Otherwise, how do I know they exist? And I mean, it's actually, depending on if there's scammers out there, it might be a valid question. But how do you know you're hiring the right people if you never meet them? Or is the whole meeting thing, that's just outdated?
Well, we're meeting today virtually. And, you get a feel for somebody when you're, interacting, even, from a virtual standpoint. And I would say that before COVID, a lot of small businesses really were rooted in doing business with people on site. But the the inconsistency that I saw very early on is no one thought twice about working with their attorney or their CPA offsite. And to me, that's virtual assistance. That's contract assistance. It's no different than virtual assistants that VAs or EAs or web designers or graphic designers, those are all virtual services. They're virtual professional services. So from the get-go, I had a very broad view of what kind of talent was out there to help small businesses scale. And after COVID, well, during COVID, everybody had to adjust. And the businesses that did adjust and figure out how to do business on a remote virtual basis, they were the ones that survived today. So the whole situation has changed dramatically. And I think people appreciate that you can get a level of synergy with somebody by meeting virtually, but there's also a lot of things you can do going into the process of picking people to work with. The same kind of vetting process that you'd go through to pick your attorney or a bookkeeper. So we happen to use a combination of technology as well as human intervention to do interviewing, to qualify people, and to match people against the business requirements that our clients present to us. And frankly, we also help the business clients get clear on what they need, because a lot of times bad matches happen because it's not really clear what was required, and the right skills aren't hired for, and the right structure, the right boundaries, the right processes aren't put into place, and that all contributes to an unsuccessful relationship with a virtual worker.
The one thing that comes to my mind, though, is there's a different level, or it's different how you present yourself. So when you said we just met, 100% agree with you. In fact, I've met many people just like this, right? I mean, in fact, if you think about it, there's people that come on podcasts, they would never agree to have coffee with me. Do you know what I mean? And it's like,
I
they
would.
come on. You would certainly, right? And I would too. But my point is, there's some people that they wouldn't necessarily make that time, but they would come on the show. So that I do see that as meeting, but you have to kind of present yourself differently, right? So what I do is I got all this stuff behind me. I make it look the way I want to look. I got lights on, all this other stuff. As I said earlier, somebody said to me, they actually, they use a filter when it comes to when they're on meetings, right? So they don't wear makeup or whatever. I can't relate to that at all, honestly. But but it's interesting on how that works. But when you try to sell yourself as to help somebody virtually, what tips do you have for people to present themselves in the right way? What's the setup? Do they need 7 lights around them? Maybe not. But what tips can you offer to them?
In all honesty, I can't say that we really focus on that. I mean, at the end of the day, between technology and human processes to help clients get clear on what we want, we get people hyper-focused on the skills that they need, the personality. I mean, it's business skills, tool skills, software tool skills, and work style. Those are the 3 things that we zero in on, and then really creating a very clear, if you will, position description. It's not a job description per se, but it's similar in that, you're outlining what you need. So the focus is there. And so I think I'm more interested in having an authentic, it's an overused word, but it's like going to a job interview live. I mean, you get all dressed up and all this kind of stuff. And then after a while, you just go to work like normal and you interact with like normal. And so I don't think I don't care that much about the glaze, as the Gen Z would say today. I'm just really more interested in someone able to really do the work and prove themselves. And so our focus is really on what is the real life experience? What's the value that freelancers can bring to the table? Of course, we want people to be presentable, speak properly, and all those kinds of things. But we don't really get too involved in whether the lighting's just right or if they have a mic. I'm not using a mic. I don't have special lighting. I'm just me.
Just you, and that's all we need for today's episode. Now, how do you know when you actually need help? And it's just kind of interesting because there's some things technology can take over, some things technology can't take over. I use a scheduling tool, right? I use Calendly, and you probably get more emails than you ever wanted to get, and like, here's a tip on this, here's a tip on that. Hey, I'll see you in a week, ready to go,
Yep.
or like, I'll see you in 2 days. Would you like to try this? It's like, that's automated by now, but it's strategic. But how do I know when I need somebody, and where should I prioritize? I mean, I could use all kinds of people, right? I could use an admin, and I could use somebody who does my images, or I could use somebody who edits my videos, and I could use somebody who does, I mean, who knows, right? There's always all kinds of things, but how do I know what's like the trigger point for most people? And how do you prioritize what kind of help would be
Well,
most
that is the key question, honestly. And we find, I mean, as I started the episode with you today, is we focus on solopreneurs and small businesses because that's where my heart is. That's the backbone of America, and I want those businesses to be more successful. And they're the least prepared, really, to be clear on what they need and to have prioritized. They may not be particularly process oriented, and so we start with human conversation to help draw that out, and we create that job profile, as I mentioned. And we talk about a couple of things. The first thing we talk about is that, frankly, every business has a back room, and that is not what your client pays you for. They pay you for the front room, whatever value you're delivering to the client. So to me, that's the first cut. What is that core work that delivers value to your client? And you can basically create two piles. What's the core work your client pays for? What's all the other stuff you have to do to run a business? That's the back office. And frankly, to me, that's where you start, is that back office, and making a list of what that is. And that's a fairly easy thing for people to think about. And then they can also layer in, well, what do I have to do that I just hate to do, or I'm not good at? And that adds to the pile. And because there's honestly a freelancer for just about anything. What you don't like to do, there's someone that loves to do it. And to me, that's the best match, is you get skill and passion for something through a contractor, whether it's a virtual assistant or a web designer or whatever it is. There's all kinds of levels of virtual assistants that are available today, from all kinds of people leaving CXOs positions to people that are really providing back-end administrative support. So that's really the key, is creating two piles and then starting. You don't have to have it perfect. Just get started with the things that are going to free you up the most to deliver more value, and it grows from there.
It's just interesting, the things you don't like to do or the things you're not good at, finding people for that. Now, I know sometimes it can be easier said than done to find people. I mean, you can throw it out on LinkedIn, you can Google, and of course on your platform, resultsresourcing.net, it comes with people's own recruiter. How does that work? I mean, how is that like, is that, what do you call it? Can't think of the term now. In a hotel when
Concierge.
Concierge, is it like that?
Yeah.
Or how does that work?
It is very much like a concierge. And basically how it evolved was that when I started to hire freelancer myself, I went to all the big platforms. And what I noticed is that there were all kind of special programs if you were a large account, because there were economies of scale. But if you were a solopreneur or a small business, everything is do it yourself. So you're talking to technology. And going back to what I was saying before about the fact that I think talking to a human can add so much value in being clear about what you need, and assessing what's more important in terms of the quality of the people that you might find, I decided to build a technology platform, which is what Results Resourcing is, that emphasizes the human interaction. And basically, it starts there, and then our system, through algorithms and human interviews, things like that, we have compiled a lot of people that we think are highly vetted for different roles. And so rather than hiring a random person, we kind of function as a staffing agency focused on contractors for small businesses. And over time, we've zeroed in on the kinds of roles that are most valuable to small businesses. And they are things like a virtual assistant, an executive assistant, project manager, someone to help with social media marketing. Those are kind of key roles. And we've also focused, frankly, on freelancers that are in the United States or Canada. And not that there aren't brilliant people all over the world that, frankly, can speak and write English well, but what our clients really value are people that grew up here and understand the culture, And the difference in culture, frankly, between Seattle and Atlanta, for example, understand the difference in doing business in Canada versus the United States or state to state. Those are really important value adds that, particularly in marketing or customer support roles, can be very important in having virtual assistants support your business and being more successful.
It's just very interesting how people choose, and how do you know that you're being matched with the right person? How do you evaluate? Is it, I mean, certainly it's personality, right? It's like a little bit steak and a little bit sizzle, right? I mean, they got to know what they're doing, but if you don't jive already, like, it's not going to work, right? Probably. But how else? And also, maybe not to mix topics, but how do most freelancers nowadays bill? Do they bill by time, or do they bill by deliverable, or do they bill by relationship? And you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
should that be part of the consideration as well?
Well, I'll answer the second part first, and it's all of the above, frankly. But I would say a lot of people focus on hourly because it's easier to measure, and it's harder for a business owner, unless you're more sophisticated, to set up and define milestones. And people don't really like retainers because they don't really want to have to basically put up cash when they don't really know what they're going to get. So I have found that the hourly tends to be more discreet, and they can focus on, okay, how many hours is it going to take to do X, Y, or Z? And it's something that you can plan for, and then meet once a week and look back at the prior week and did things get accomplished? And I think it's that kind of approach, basically makes sense. As far as how do you know whether somebody's really quality, it's not an exact science. I mean, people go through a huge interviewing process for on-site jobs, and there are still people that fall out, that do well in interviews, but for whatever reason don't succeed when they're actually on the job. And so our approach has been kind of one that I call corroboration. And so people create profiles on our system, and it's a huge relational database. And it's not only business skills, tool skills, and work style, but it's also proficiency at these different things. And then in the course of, we actually don't spend a lot of time looking at people's qualifications unless they've matched a job. And if they match a job, that's when, starting with the algorithm, it starts to surface the people that best match based on what's in their profile against the job requirements that we've also helped create. So that matching happens, and it surfaces the best candidates. And then at that point, a human takes over and starts to look at, the skill match. Are they matching in the most important skills to the client? We look at LinkedIn. We look at, Facebook, Instagram, what their websites. We might look at their profiles on one of the major platforms. So we're looking to corroborate all this information. We're not doing tests and things like that, although we can quickly see if someone took a LinkedIn test for different skills. But it's really a judgment thing. And because the process has a few steps, we've taken a few steps with the client to get to know the client's needs. Same thing with the freelancers. It's easier to make judgments. And for the most part, we also have the clients interview the person to make sure they feel there's a match. And frankly, that the freelancer feels like there's a match, because the match has to go both ways to really be successful.
I think that's one thing people used to forget about, right? I mean, even when they hire people, they're like, congratulations, you're hired. And, I say congratulations to you and us. We'd like to work with you because we all win. Because if we didn't, then why would we hire that person, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's a very different mindset from years gone by, where it's like, I'm the company, I'm hiring you, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of interesting how. So when you have freelancers, when you have companies coming in, or solopreneurs coming in.
Sorry, my cat wanted to be involved.
Is that what that was? Your cat
Yes.
walking through the screen.
Yeah.
I have no idea where mine are. They're somewhere.
Had something to say, clearly.
Not in front of my screen today, but it does happen. Like, what is the typical trigger point? Like, at what point, like, if I, I don't know what a good example is, but I need a new car, right? There's a clear trigger point. The other car isn't working, or, there's continuous problems. What's the trigger point to say, I need to go to resultsresourcing.net today to get help with this thing. Like, is it just like, oh, I'm so busy, or like, how do people get there?
Not fast enough, in my opinion, because people do procrastinate, and they're a bit fearful, and maybe they've had a bad experience. But a lot of our business does come to us from referrals from other very happy clients, or even freelancers, frankly. But it tends to be overwhelmed when they really feel like they're spending all their time working on the back end of the business, and they're really running out of time, and certainly don't have time to create, think of new ideas, or even free time. So that tends to be the trigger. But your question brings up a really interesting point about how our service has evolved. Because at the end of the day, we originally did custom talent pools. We would build a job description. We would go find, whatever freelancers the client needs, and we would give them choices. So it could really be anything. But what these small businesses kept coming back to us and saying is, I love having custom talent, but what I really need is competent, reliable, nice, and I need it right now. And so I had to really think about, how do I deliver that competent, reliable, nice right now? And so what it really ended up being is that instead of individual freelancers today, we tend to match with freelance agencies or teams. And what that enables is a very rich skill set in a team of people, all managed by an entrepreneur that owns the virtual assistant agency. And it also provides scalability, because one person might be able to work 5 hours this week, but if you suddenly need 20 hours next week, that one person probably can't do that, but a team can. So I've really realized that the flexible nature of pre-vetted teams, and that's the other key in terms of competent and reliable and nice, is I've pre-vetted teams. And so at the end of the day, we can stand up a competent, reliable, nice team in 24 to 48 hours for a client that comes to us, because they want to get started now. They've hit some breakage point, and it's like, okay, I'm done. I need help. And we can literally provide it in 24 to 48 hours.
That's awesome, especially if people want to move fast. It's just kind of interesting to me. You also have to look at, as you said, with the team, sometimes, like if you have an individual person, are they just doing it on the side? Are you going to be their priority at 8 at night? And maybe for some things it's okay, but like if you got to talk to them, if you have to brainstorm, whatever it might be, probably not. Elizabeth, really appreciate you coming on the show. We're already out of time. 30 seconds here. Tell us, like, who should sign up, who should come to you specifically, and good luck with everything. Thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you so much. We are really keen to help solopreneurs and small businesses scale. And our specialty is really outsourcing the back room, and we will help you with human help all along the way. And you can reach me at LinkedIn, Elizabeth Eiss, or through our website to sign up for a quick call, resultsresourcing.net. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in. Please rate and review the Business Storytelling Show on your favorite podcast platform, and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.